If you have a true strange or scary story, consider sending it my way by going to astheravendreams.com and click the button to do so, and clicking the button to do so. And of course, thank you. This glitch in the Matrix occurred in my parents' house, when I was staying with them for a while. This was a few years ago, so I would have been in my mid-20s. I was home alone in the house, so it was just me and the dog in the house. I went downstairs to play the piano, a common pastime of mine, and I noticed that the back door to our garden was wide open. No big deal, as we usually leave the back door open so that the dog can freely roam the house and the garden. For context, my parents' house is a large, detached house, with a large garden in a middle-class suburb, where crime is virtually non-existent, so we frequently leave the back door open, so long as at least somebody is at home. I distinctly remember seeing the back door wide open, and the garden was very visible, but at the time I just ignored it and went to play the piano. After a few minutes, I decided I would close the back door and ensure that the dog was inside, so as to not disturb the neighbors with my loud piano playing. But when I went to do so, I discovered that the door was now closed again. I was the only person in the house at the time, and I definitely remember clearly seeing the back door open, exposing the sight of the garden. Except now it was closed. And not only that, it was also locked, which is something that can only happen on the inside. At first I thought the wind had blown it shut, but it wasn't windy, and the door was heavy, so it would have taken a very strong breeze to close it. And anyway, that doesn't explain why it's locked. At this point, I started to genuinely freak out, thinking that maybe somebody had entered the house, and for some reason, decided to close and lock the back door. I even grabbed a weapon and slowly searched the house, but found nobody. For a few minutes, I was genuinely terrified at the prospect that somebody had broken into the house, but when I found no evidence of this, I was relieved, if not still bewildered. Also, our dog, who was up and wandering all over the house, would definitely have noticed somebody breaking in and would have barked. The only rational explanation I could muster is that I somehow closed and locked the door, and for some reason my brain canceled the memory. Again, it's normal for the back door to be open when we're home, and I don't often close it, unless I have a specific reason to do so. I'm not mentally unwell or on drugs, so I have no idea why I would have randomly closed and locked the back door, and then just deleted any memory of doing so. Especially since I felt genuine fear when I went to search. When I was in second grade, I went to a small private Christian school. One day after recess, I was walking back into the school building when I saw something strange. A girl standing against a wall in the hallway. She looked like she was my age, but there was something off about her. She didn't seem solid, more like a projection or a hologram. Curious, I walked up to her and asked her name. She told me her name was Chelsea. I introduced myself, let's call myself Buddy for this story, and we talked for a moment. I don't remember much of what we said, but I do remember telling her I had to go back to class. She nodded, and that was the end of it. Or so I thought. Fast forward 2 years. By then, my family had moved to a new city about 8 hours away, still within the same province. Now I was in the 4th grade, attending a completely different school. One day I met a girl in my class who looked oddly familiar. It took me a moment, but then it hit me. She was the same girl that I'd seen standing in the hallway 2 years prior. I asked her if she recognized me, and to my shock, she said that she did. Then she told me something even stranger. She had seen me in her school the same way I had seen her. She said I looked like a projection, or a hologram, standing in a specific spot in her school. She even took me to that spot like she wanted to prove it really happened. We didn't become close friends or anything, and that was pretty much the end of it, but even now, years later, I can't stop thinking about it. Why did we see each other like that? Was it some kind of glitch in reality? A portal opening between two places, or something else entirely? I don't think I'll ever know the answers, but this experience stands out as one of the strangest moments of my life. Hey Raven. First of all, thank you again for going above and beyond to sending the posters to me up here in the Great White North. They're amazing, and so are you. Well, of course, happy to do so. This isn't scary, but it's definitely weird, and was witnessed by 4 other people. Last week, I and a couple of friends were helping our friend, T, set her apartment back up after it had to be sprayed for roaches. Apartment buildings can suck. T has several cats, and one of the things we unpacked was a box of cat toys. This was wrapped and tucked in the living room under a table, so not buried or crammed under anything. She pulled out some of the cat's favorite toys, including one of those wands with the wire strung with a few beads and feathers at the end. We all know them. Usually a 2 or so foot length of wire that you can dangle in front of your cat. Except this was no longer a wire. About 4 inches past the end with the feathers, the wire is tightly coiled, like a compact spring. There are a few beads on either side of the coil. We all look at it, and T is clearly confused, asking how the heck that could have possibly happened. She turned to her boyfriend and asked if he remembered this wand, and he said yes, that he had tripped on the wire 1,000 times. It was not coiled. I've never seen a cat wand like that, and I can't see why someone would design one that way. The feathers at the end were half chewed off, so it was definitely old and well loved. Now, I know that insecticide chemicals can do some wonky things, but I've never heard of them manipulating metal before. Again, nothing spooky, but definitely a bizarre glitch. Maybe the Matrix got bored while she was away and twiddling its thumbs on this toy. Who knows? Hey Raven. My name is Dave. I'm 47 years old and I live in the Netherlands. I've been listening to your podcast for over a year now, and I especially enjoy the Glitch in the Matrix stories. I always listen to the stories on my way to work, and I really like your narration style. Thank you. I really feel that sharing stories helps people with making some sort of explanation for themselves about the strange things that are going on in this world. First, a little background. I've always had memories about my early childhood. I mean, from as young as being a baby. I remember things from that time, like understanding everything people said, and being annoyed when people couldn't understand me. And then there was this man around me who was some sort of guide. I thought everybody could see him, but soon found out this wasn't the case when I knocked a vase over and tried to blame this man. This was later verified by my mom, who said that I indeed always talked about that man. I can also clearly remember sitting in a stroller at the age of 3 or so, and thinking about the choice I made of coming into this world as a boy. At that time, I clearly knew it was a conscious decision. The guide told me that all my knowledge about the world would go away by the age of 8, and I made a promise not to forget, but most of it I did forget. I think this world is not what most people think it is, and all the glitch stories are proof of that. I've always had things glitching around me, like missing tools that are found the moment I stand up, to find out they were in front of me the whole time. I have a distinct feeling that someone is messing with me or trying to teach me a lesson. So, here are a few of my craziest stories. Story 1. This one might look obvious to explain at first because it happened when I was stoned with some friends. It was in the late 90s. Me and 2 friends had smoked. We walked to the shopping center and my friend A went to the supermarket to get some food and drinks. Me and my other friend, B, stayed outside because we didn't want to face all the people in the supermarket. Right after A went in, and after I told him not to get anything for me, I decided that I was actually thirsty and wanted a can of soda. Now, I didn't want to go in myself, so I looked around to spot a Coke vending machine. This was the era where all the vending machines were cash only. Electric payment wasn't really a thing yet. So, with cash in hand, I went to the machine, and as I was looking for the coin slot, I realized that I couldn't really locate it right away. Annoyed, I looked at the machine over and over and still could not locate it. After about 2 minutes, my friend B came over and asked what was taking so long. At that point, I gave up and explained that I couldn't find the coin slot. I even went as far as checking the back of the machine. I knew I was going to get laughed at, and indeed he did. I was fine with that as long as he helped me locate the slot. After he was finished with his laughter and was done pointing out that I was stoned and couldn't see straight, he took a look at the machine. "Dude, it's right..." Huh? I replied, "Yeah, right where?" We both looked the machine over for another 2 minutes or so, but still hadn't found it. And now A had come back from the supermarket and saw us looking all over this Coke machine. B at that point was dumbfounded as I was, and we both explained that there was no coin slot. A couldn't even comprehend what we talked about, so we just asked him to find the slot. A was the most sober of all of us, and surely he would be able to find it. After another few minutes of us 3 looking and feeling the machine over, we left empty-handed. I needed to get away from that machine because I was weirded out, and had even begun testing if I was dreaming or not. Now, story 2. This happened in 2019. I was, and still am, living together with my girlfriend, Henny. We already had a lot of glitchy stuff happening to us, like lighters disappearing and reappearing, a hole in the middle of a tile in the front yard that previously wasn't there, so by that time, we were kind of used to stuff like this. I had just taken a shower and grabbed a towel from the closet in the bathroom. I noticed that it was a bright red one and I hadn't seen it before. As I looked it over, I saw that it had the McDonald's logo on it, and underneath that, it says, "Good job." I figured it must have been some sort of gift for employees, and since neither my girlfriend nor myself had ever worked at McDonald's, it was really surprising. I asked Henny where the towel had come from, and she explained that it just showed up in the laundry basket, and she washed it and put it in the closet thinking it was mine. As I explained I had never seen it before, we looked at each other stunned. So, now, we refer to this towel as the one from another dimension. And story 3. Okay, so this one happened earlier this year in April. Henny and I were on vacation in Japan. We had first visited Tokyo and stayed there for a week. After that, we traveled around by train and went from hotel to hotel. I had my power bank with me at all times because we were very much depending on our cell phones for everything. Booking.com, Google Maps, and Google Translate are necessities. The power bank was always kept in either my jacket pocket or my backpack. We had just left the hotel and were in the train on our way to Kyoto when I grabbed my jacket looking for the power bank. When we leave a hotel, We both look the whole room over because we realize what a pain it is to get your stuff back in a country where neither of us speak the language. So when I couldn't find it in my jacket, I went to the backpack and looked in the pocket where I always keep it. Nothing. I looked in all the other pockets. Nothing. Looked in our other bags. Still nothing. I literally looked 4 times in the backpack where it should have been, and Henny then took everything out, and we both confirmed that the backpack was empty. When we came to Kyoto, first thing we did was buy a new power bank. As it happened, they had the exact same model for sale, and as I was very pleased with it, I bought it right away. Now, you know what's coming, and so did I. I didn't want to say it to Henny, but I knew in the back of my mind that the power bank was going to show up again. So the next day when I grabbed my backpack, it felt kind of heavy. I knew it right away. I opened up the pocket where I always keep it, and there it was, like it had always been there. I grabbed the new one to make sure, and we now had 2 identical power banks, and then I showed it to Henny. Even though we had a lot of glitches happening, we still couldn't believe what happened. I distinctly remember verifying with Henny that this was not possible, and she agreed that there was no way it could have been there. We both are not the kind of person to play pranks, and we can't keep a straight face for long. No one else was near our luggage the entire time. To state the obvious, at no time were we ever using drugs or anything else, and we were both sober and very well rested. I hope you enjoyed my stories. There are a lot more, but I think this is lengthy enough as it is. Perhaps I'll submit them at a later time. Hi, Raven. A few years ago, my husband and I went to Buffalo Wild Wings in our local town that we enjoy going to quite often. When we headed home, it was just starting to get dark outside. We went the usual way, heading northbound along the main road the same way we always do. And we headed up to the first red light where we always make a left. When the light turned green, I proceeded to turn left, heading westbound, as my husband was in the passenger seat, glancing out the passenger window looking east. I was still in the process of making the left-hand turn when my husband said, "Where's the brown building?" I said, "What?" And then quickly glanced behind while making that left, where the brown building would have been located at the northeast corner, and I noticed it was gone. He said when we were at the light, he was staring off in that direction and realized he was only staring at the desert landscape with lights in the distance from a golf course driving range that is up the road from there. It took him a minute to realize the building was gone. This building had always creeped me out. It didn't have windows, and it sat in a lonely parking lot by itself at this corner. It was a bar at one time, in a real estate office, and I remember seeing a large commercial real estate sign sitting at that corner one time. Anyway, I proceeded to head home, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. My husband asked me to turn around as we were driving home. I was second-guessing that maybe the building was up a little further up that road, although deep down inside I knew he was right. I had said no since we had a couple beers that night. That night at home, I said maybe they sold the building and tore the building down. We decided to take a drive the next day, and the building and the parking lot were there again. We can't explain what happened, but we both saw that the building was not there, Raven. I do have a few more crazy glitch in the Matrix and unexplainable stories that I'd like to submit when I have time. I appreciate your channel and have been listening to it for years. Your soothing voice makes it easy to listen to, and it's good to know that we're not all just losing our minds. That glitches are real. When I was a teenager, I once stayed at my aunt's house for a few weeks during summer vacation. The house was an old turn-of-the-century farmhouse with a decaying barn in the back. One night, I headed upstairs to the guest bedroom on the second floor and sat down on the bed. The bedroom light was ceiling mounted with a hanging chain type on-off switch. I reached up and I pulled the chain. And as soon as the room goes dark, I heard footsteps coming up the staircase. The footsteps were far too light and too quick to be an adult person, and there were no small children in the house. I sat silently on the bed listening intently when the footsteps entered the room. It was at that point I heard the unmistakable sound of a dog panting. My aunt did have a dog, but I never saw him climb the stairs before, so I was a bit surprised by this. As my right hand reached up to turn the light back on, I reached my left hand out to pet the dog. I was in the process of saying, "What are you doing up here?" when the room lit up. The panting noise stopped immediately, and there was exactly 0 dogs in front of me. I booked it downstairs to find my aunt with her one and only pet sleeping at her feet, where he had been for the past 20 minutes or so. Was I temporarily in a parallel universe where my aunt's dog did come upstairs? Or was it a ghost dog from a former owner? I'm really not sure which would be more bizarre. This strangeness happened last week. It was about 7 a.m. on a weekday morning. I think it was a Friday, but I'm not sure. I was on my way to a workout at the local gym and decided to stop on the way to get a power drink at the local convenience store. This particular store has been there for years. Just a small country-type store which is never busy at 7 a.m. The parking lot is small, with parking directly in front of the store for only 4 cars. I pulled in and parked near a car that was already there. I left a space in between us as the guy had his driver door open and was looking like he was ready to get out and head to the store. I got a good look at this guy as I was walking up the step to go in the store, and as I walked in, there was the same guy paying for a bunch of items at the register. I stood there for a second wide-eyed. I backed up out through the door to look at his car, and there was nobody in the driver's seat. I walked back into the store to see the guy walking out past me with his bag of items he had just bought. How on earth was he already in there when I know I was ahead of him? I bought my drink and walked out to see him start his car and drive off. I didn't say a word to the counter assistant as I felt a little shaken up, and I've had this event on my mind all week. Hi Raven, this is David. I thought I would tell you a strange story that happened to me around the time that my mother gave me her will. She's getting older and she just wanted to make sure that I had it and that I kept it safe. After I got it, and we went over everything together, I got home and I put the will, which was in an old journal under my Bible, under my coffee table in my den. Well, a few days went by, and I got to thinking about something that I wanted to check in the will. So I go to look for it, and it's not there. I know that I didn't move it, and I live alone, so I know no one else has moved it. I immediately started to freak out because I know how important this is to my mom, and I'm looking everywhere, in every drawer, under every chair, even in the couch cushions, but I didn't turn up anything. I went to bed that night so frustrated, and my house was a complete mess. The next morning I wake up, and as I'm walking through my demolished house, I see it. Sitting there, just like it never disappeared. Under the coffee table, under the Bible. And as if that wasn't weird enough, when I went to sleep, the Bible and everything else was pulled out from under that table and scattered all over the living room floor. But now here it was, all stacked up, perfectly with the will back under the table. To this day, I don't know how it happened, but I know for whatever reason, for 24 hours, that will disappeared. Sometimes, I think maybe my brother who passed away years earlier came back and wanted to give it a read, but just couldn't get it back in time before I noticed it was gone. Hi, Raven. I've recently started listening to your podcast while I'm falling asleep at night. I only listen to the glitch stories because I'm too much of a chicken to listen to the ghost or paranormal activity stories before I fall asleep. Last night, I was getting ready for bed as usual, and I turned on a Glitch in the Matrix episode while I tried to fall asleep. I was about 5 to 10 minutes into the episode when the power turned off in my apartment. I noticed this because I have a fan in my window, which had obviously turned off. At first I thought to myself, that's weird. It's not even windy or storming outside. Then I got this eerie feeling. The room was dead silent. The podcast wasn't playing. My phone didn't die. It wasn't even plugged into a charger, so I know the power going out had nothing to do with why the podcast stopped playing. When I picked up my phone to press play and continue the episode, it was as if I was never even listening to it in the first place. I couldn't just press play. I had to go actually search for that episode again, and it didn't show that I had already listened to the first 5 to 10 minutes. I thought to myself, what are the odds that my first Glitch in the Matrix experience happened while listening to a podcast about a glitch in the Matrix? I know this is a minor glitch compared to some of the other stories you tell on here, but I couldn't help but share because of the irony. This happened to me back in 2014. I had just moved back to my home state, and I was working in an ice cream shop downtown. I met a girl working in a donut shop across the street. We can call her Cassie. Me and my coworker decided to go out with Cassie one night. We went to a bar nearby and then came back to my place because it was within walking distance. Cassie decided she wanted to log into Facebook and opened my MacBook to do so. Surprisingly, she didn't have to log in, because when she put in Facebook, it pulled up her account, already logged in. I know a little bit about computers, but I'm absolutely no hacker. I'm not capable of being a hacker, nor do I have any interest in trying to hack this chick's Facebook. I assumed that she would know this and be as confused as I was, but these girls did not know me as well as I'd hoped, and they both stared me down. She accused me of hacking her Facebook, stating that I had been caught red-handed, and they left my place. My coworker avoided me and quit soon after the incident, and Cassie never spoke to me again. I never hacked this girl's Facebook. I've never hacked anything in my life. Why would her account be logged into my MacBook? It was the strangest experience. I felt so helpless, and I will never forget it. At this time, in this story, I had been delivering newspapers every single night for roughly 6 years. I've driven down these same roads countless times. This one night was unusually bright from the moon. I go down this country road to deliver a few papers, and I use the cul-de-sac to turn around. My headlights light up this old Victorian-style home. I've never seen this house before. I turned off my headlights because I couldn't clearly see the house. The best way to describe this house is to tell you to look up any Scooby-Doo Victorian home, and there you go. You could see the house was once white, but weather-worn. There was a large front porch with a small set of stairs to get to it. It looked empty. My boyfriend at the time loved exploring old abandoned homes, so I made a note of it mentally and I physically wrote it down in my route book. Later on that day, my boyfriend and I excitedly drove back to that house, but there was no home. It was gone. Completely vanished. I knew this was the spot, but I grabbed my route book to see my note, and the note was gone too. I have no idea what happened, but I never saw that house again. So that, my friends, was this week's collection of Glitch in the Matrix stories. A collection of stories that were bizarre, strange, weird, and just downright odd. Stories about our existence and reality breaking down, which is always a lovely thing to consider. Are we in a timeline where everything falls apart? Who knows? Who cares? All we can do is just enjoy the time we have, I suppose. Yeah. Anyways, looking at lists here, sorry. Hopefully you all enjoyed the stories. I did. Always good stuff, always weird stuff, always fun to do. And I know you guys like them, because if you didn't, I wouldn't keep doing them, right? Maybe it's because I keep doing them that you guys like them. I don't know. It's a cyclical problem. It's recursive. I do them because you like them because I do them, ergo they exist. Maybe, wait, hang on. Here's a thing to put in your mind. Maybe people like me covering these stories and you all listening to them is what causes them to happen. Think about that for a second. It comes back to the recursive situation, but maybe in some bizarre, recursive way, we're causing these glitches. Think about it, but don't think too hard about it because I don't want you to realize how silly of a thing it was for me to say. Anyways, hopefully you all enjoy the stories. If you did, please do hit that like button. That would help tremendously. If you're new to the channel and liked what you heard, consider subscribing. That'd be pretty fantastic of you. If you want to read something, I know you like listening to me read, but if you want to read something, I have about 12 copies of my book left for sale. I don't have them on hand. Mind you, it's going to take a little bit to get them still. But I have about 12 copies left on my hand, in the book over there, in the box. But they're not. What am I saying? They're going to be in the box over there once they get here. Which is slow, which I've mentioned. Anyways, I wrote a book. Just consider looking into it if you want to buy it. Go to ko-fi.com/astheravendreams. It's called The Insomniac's Experiment. It's a psychological thriller. You can also check it out on Amazon if you want. Kindle, physical, however, signed from the coffee page. Once I get them, I ship them out. I have about 12 left that I can sell. So, there you go. I'm done trying to make that funny or make that interesting because I kept saying things wrong, so just enjoy the book. I'll talk to you later. Bye. I'm kidding, of course. Consider that. Sign up for Patreon and memberships, get early access content like this and other things depending on what you sign up for and how you sign up. You can also listen elsewhere, such as Spotify, Pandora, Apple Podcast. Longer form content, same content, just put together differently, if you will. Yeah, good stuff, though. Okay. The other thing we do during the Glitch in the Matrix videos is what we call the word of the week. I give you all a word, you guys put it in a sentence, and yeah, I then screenshot those sentences, those comments. Sorry, your sentence needs to go in the comments. I then screenshot those comments and put them on the screen in the next Glitch in the Matrix video, typically the next Monday. And that's pretty much how it works. You help me, I help you, I shout you out, you help the video do better, that's how it works, that's how it goes. Anyways, last week, several of you commented, and on the screen right now and several moments prior to now, is a collection of all the people who commented last week's Word of the Week, demonstrating that in this situation, I do hold up my end of the deal. Of course I do. Why wouldn't I? Anyway, these people who are on the screen right now went above and beyond, left a comment with last week's Word of the Week, and for that, I say to them, thank you so very much. If you don't ever want to leave a comment, that's okay, but if you do, I really do appreciate it. In fact, if you do, I offer my approbation. That's right. This week's Word of the Week is approbation. Approbation is commendation or praise, an act of approving formally or officially, similar to approval. It is a nice word. If you give someone your approbation, you are commending them, praising them, approving them, so forth. Showing your approval. It's a good word. Use it in a sentence, in a comment. I'll put it on the screen next week whenever you do. And that's about where this ends. Thank you to each and every single one of you who did listen to this point, and if you didn't, that's okay too. All that said, I hope you're having a beautiful week. Hope I see you again here very soon. But until I do, remember that you are loved, you are valid, you are important, you are the best you that you can be. Don't forget it, and don't let anyone tell you otherwise. And of course, my friends, much love, and sleep well.